Law Talk with Nick Maruchak, thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
Nick Maruchak, hello.
Hi, Chrissy.
I've got a big bit of paper between you and I. That's no good. I want to see your face as you think, as your brow furrows and you think about our listeners' questions that they're going to put to you. Should we jump? I'll jump in straight away, team, with the talkback number. You need to get on board early. 133 882 133 882. Calls in preference to text, but we will take your text, but we'll do the triage. We'll do calls first. And our text is 0487 999 882. All right, Nick, what's your particular area of law that you favour?
So I am a trained employment lawyer, and our firm also does a bit of family law as well, which I supervise. So they're the main areas. But when I first started law, I did everything for the first 5 years. So I just took everything that came.
And you've still got all your hair. Fabulous. Well
So
done,
far.
buddy. Well done. That's great. So employment law is an interesting one, and there's been some interesting additions for contract workers that I've seen lately, especially in, say, one of the industries that I work in as an MC, where I do big functions and for entertainers, where you've got that superannuation payment now that has to be paid on top of your contract. How does that work, though, when you approach someone that's employed you as an MC or an entertainer, and they say, oh, the fee is $100. So then how do you incorporate the superannuation on that? How does that work?
Yeah, so superannuation laws did change not too long ago to give contractors rights to super. There are some carve-outs. So if you're hired as a contractor on a project basis, so if they're just giving you emceeing one event, no super's paid, right? So if you're a carpenter that's being hired to just paint the floors of one house, install the floors of one house, no super for you. But if you're hired on an ongoing basis, then you are entitled to super. The other trick that companies use to to prevent paying super to contractors is to make the contractor perform the services through a company. Because in order to get super as a contractor, it needs to be personal service, it has to be delivered in your individual capacity. If you do it through a company, you don't get super.
So if you have a trust, so say I invoice through here, you either get in the line, team, and ask the questions, or I'll ask my own. 133 882. So if you're doing it through a trust, then that would preclude you from getting super.
Yeah. So if your trust as a corporate entity, as a corporate trustee, that would. If the trustee is individual, that is a good question. I think potentially that would also exclude you, but it may not. I'm not sure on that one. But
I'd like to know the answer to that one.
Yeah. So do you have a trust?
Yeah, I do. It's a family trust, and I am the family.
But who's a trustee?
Me.
So in your individual capacity?
Yes.
Okay. So, then you potentially might be entitled to super in that circumstances because you are performing the services individually.
Yeah.
So, personally. But you wouldn't get super because, if you're emceeing one event, you wouldn't be entitled to it because that's a project basis.
Okay, well, that's interesting to hear. 133 882, and Brian has taken up the challenge. He's got a challenge for you, Nick Maruchak. Let's see if we can find out if we can help him. Brian, hello.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. How are we? All right? The reason why I was phoning was I had a little bit of an issue with a blinds company recently where we actually purchased a screen door, a security door. It got damaged in relation to my dog had run into it. We sent it away for repair. They actually took it away, said they would have it back within 2 to 3 weeks. And one of the actual selling points as well for they actually sold us on was basically if you pay now, we can reduce the cost by about 20%, So I paid for it up front. We ordered that back on the 24th of September, and we still haven't had it installed. Well, to be honest with you, we've had it rectified now. They're coming in to install it today. But we've had an issue where technicians weren't turning up for appointments. No one was phoning us back. But basically, the customer service was really, really poor. I tried to actually contact them on numerous amounts of occasions, saying, can I speak to the supervisor, et cetera, et cetera. Getting palm off, we'll get someone to phone you back, and so on and so forth. Never did. In the end, I actually walked into the showroom and said, look, I need these contact details and I want them now and so on. But I'm just thinking that some poor people out there just aren't able to walk in and demand that sort of thing. So is there any form of pressure that can be put on these companies once they've actually taken the money off you? Or is it a case that it's basically what can we do, or what can we do to add pressure to them to sort out this issue?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, great question. So with your blinds, were they defectively installed, or they just took a long time to actually come up and come to your house to install them?
It was installed perfectly, but unfortunately, I've got a donut of a dog who just tried to run at the screen and bashed it. So, we sent it back to the company to get it repaired, and they said about 2 to 3 weeks, which is fair enough. And we paid them, but we're only getting installed now. That was back on the 24th of September. So it just goes to show how long it's been. It's been 8 weeks now, roughly.
Yep. So there's a few areas of law you want to look at. One is contract law. So what is the contractual agreement that you had? Was it a significant term of the agreement that they would supply in 2 to 3 weeks? My guess is they'll probably tell you 2 to 3 weeks, but in the contract they're probably not obliged to do it in that time frame. So you have to see what the terms say. And these contracts can't have unfair terms either. But they also did make a representation to you as well. They represented 2 to 3 weeks. So and this is how representations work as well. If they give you a statement about something that happens in the future, they just have to have a reasonable basis to make it. If that representation turns out to be wrong, then it's not misleading and deceptive conduct if they had a reasonable basis to at least give you that prediction, right? So that's where things get really fine when it comes to misleading and deceptive conduct. But this is what you can do. You can write to them and say, look, representations were made to me 2 to 3 weeks. I understand that was your best guess at the time, but I relied on that representation. And if you don't install it within a reasonable period of time, then I'm going to potentially exercise my right to terminate the contract. And I'm going to potentially also sue you in the magistrate's court by commencing a consumer trader claim to recover my losses. And also, if it costs me more to install the blinds, I'm going to charge you for the extra amount that it cost me to install similar blinds. So you write that. If you want to go a little bit further, you can download a copy of the magistrate's court document, the form, fill it out, and say, this is a draft form I'm going to file if you don't do something. And that kind of will force them to take you a bit more seriously. So there's some things you can do. But in your case, it all resolved, and you probably a bit of probably too much work to do all that. But if you're in a similar situation, that's probably a starting point.
All right, Brian, there's your starting point. Now, if you didn't get all that down, you can listen back to the program later on the 6PR website, and you can get all that information. Liam, we're going to squeeze you in before we go to a break. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you. You're saying about the payments of superannuation for contractors, particularly around projects. I think you used the example of the guest speaker. What if the project has a longer term? So, for an example, in like an educational setting where you have kids that might be doing dance or something like that, and you go out and you would employ a contractor to deliver sessions to teach kids choreography. The project is going to come to a conclusion in, say, a month once the performance is delivered, but there's going to be more than one engagement with that person. Let's say there's 6 engagements over the course of a month, but being that their engagement still has an end date, is there still a requirement to pay them superannuation?
Yeah, so I would say there is a great section for on the ATO website called Super for Independent Contractors. So do have a read of that. I'll give you a kind of my initial view on it. It sounds like if there is many, like the safest way to do it is to have a new contract for each project. So you said that there was about 6 or so different projects. If the business wants to properly ensure that they don't have to pay super, then I would sign a contract for project 1, a new contract for project 2, a new contract for project 3. If you just bundle them all up into all of these projects, it's more of a case that it's probably not a project basis. So there's a risk that super might be paid. And there's another exception I forgot to mention. If super is paid to contractors when it's primarily for the supply of labour and skills. If there's materials involved, so if a contract's providing materials, that's a way around it as well. But in your case, I think it's borderline, and it's something. Are you the business or are you the contractor?
I think Liam's disappeared. He's
Okay.
disappeared. So
Yep.
he's listening intently. We'll figure out that one. Look, Tim, we do have time for a couple more calls. Stay with us, 133 882, 133 882. Do not leave it too late because I have two lines free and I have the very large brain of Nicholas at your disposal. Okay, Nick from MKI Legal. We've got a question for you today. Waycos released its cost of living report. Wasn't looking great. A lot of us are doing it very tough, and people are considering, can they hook into their super at all? Is there a way under law that you could get into your super if you needed money and funds?
Yep. So there are a number of criteria. One criteria is just general severe financial hardship. Now, to get it, you have to be on Centrelink for at least 6 months, right? Otherwise, the super fund is just going to say no. Another option is if you are losing your house, if the bank is repossessing the house and you're and they've sent you a notice to say if you're in default, we're going to take action to sell it, then you don't need to wait that 26 weeks. If you're in that tough position, then you can also access your super funds.
Do you have to be on Centrelink for that?
No, you don't have to be for that. That's an exception, right? So it's if it doesn't involve a house, it's 26 weeks. Another ground is losing the house, and there are also grounds for for medical stuff, right?
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
and it's about $10,000 in a 12-month period.
Well, let's just say you're a single mum.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a job, but even with that job, and you're the person that's been left the house as part of the divorce, and you're not going to be able to keep the house unless, you're going to have to sell it. But if you had super, let's say you'd had $10 worth of, or no, $100,000 worth of super, could you access it in that situation?
So first thing is you can apply to the bank for financial hardship, right?
Yeah.
So you tell the bank, I'm going through a divorce. Let's talk about maybe restructuring the loan, maybe capitalising the interest, delaying things, give me a breathing period. So do that first.
Mm.
And banks have obligation to take that seriously. And you can go to AFCA if they don't do it right. But then if you try that and they said no, then if you get basically a letter from a bank to say, we're going to take steps to default, then that should be good enough. You don't have to actually wait for them to sell the house. They just have to kind of give you correspondence to say you're at that stage where it's being sold. So then you can go and access it. And ATO has a good website on it, and that's how it is. So yeah, that's kind of the safety net that we have.
That's pretty interesting. That could be helpful to a lot of people. With your law questions that people ask you, do people often ask you sort of bizarre, out of the left questions about traffic laws and things like that as when you're at a dinner party? Do they ask you strange questions about traffic laws and scooters and things like that? Because I reckon that's a big dinner party conversation for a lot of people at the moment.
Oh yeah, sometimes we do get it, and there are some weird laws it's illegal to hitchhike, for example, and it's a weird one. It's and also,
is there a penalty for that then?
Yeah, it's a $50 fine. So
$50.
So
just take the Uber.
Yeah, they did an update, and also another weird one is kids. You can't play street games. It's playing games on the road is actually illegal. And I remember
so
when
if
I
you've
was
got
a
a
kid,
cul-de-sac, you can't play a game on the road?
I was playing all the time, riding my bike on the cul-de-sac and stuff. Not that the police will ever fine anyone for doing it, but it's technically a $50 fine.
But you could have a nasty neighbour who said, "I'm sick and tired of little Johnny and his mates playing street cricket," and the whole lot of you could go.
Yep, and that's right. And there's just if you look at the road traffic code, it's just full of some weird ones, that the cops never kind of pick up on. And I've broken these all the time. If you're crossing a pedestrian and you have to cross the intersection at the most shortest route possible. You can't actually cross diagonally. Otherwise, that's a fine. E-scooters can't go more than 25 kilometres per hour. And I know some people like to maybe hack that and make it go faster. Can't go more than 20 kilometres below the speed limit. So you see anyone kind of on the freeway, 80 kilometres or less, that's illegal. So, I know a few weird ones just out of for kicks, but
here's one. I'm a country girl. Are you allowed to take, because I've seen people driving sheep and stuff, not in the town itself, but just outside. Are you allowed to have livestock on roads anymore?
Yeah, so there is something for you have to get written permission from the CEO from main roads in order to bring any cattle or sheep through town roads. So
It's actually an interesting one for people as they're travelling now for summer holidays
Yeah.
because I've been down to Esperance and those places that we go, and every now and then you will find a farmer transferring from one paddock to the other, and they have to bring it across the road.
Yeah. So if you're going through the town, you need permission. But if you're not away from the town, the farmer has a duty to make sure it's done safely, right? So that the responsibility is on them.
Right, in 30 seconds or less, what are you doing for Christmas? Are you coming back here next week, or are you having the week off?
I'm coming back here. I've got no plans. I'm just going to stay home and maybe go down south, maybe at Mandurah if I can get an Airbnb last minute for a couple of days.
You should stay at Seashells. Do you know Seashells down in Mandurah?
No, I haven't been.
That is one of the best locations. I swear you'll love it. And they've actually got the only ocean infinity pool in that part of WA. Check out Seashells. All right, you have a Merry Christmas and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you, Chrissy.